and welcome to Canada's Corner on LPTV, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. Tonight, as always, John Gapso on the big board. My name is Pat Ford, and it is my singular honor every week to host a show featuring the down-ballot candidates of the Libertarian Party, of whom they are mighty, they are proud, a slight tinge of obnoxiousness, and ready, if you will, to continue the forward progress we've made. And I use that term intentionally, right? The forward progress that we continue to make as the Libertarian Party spreads its philosophy, its principles, its statement of principles, its movement, and its power across this country, seeking nothing less than liberty for all in our lifetime. We begin every show with our mantra. The purpose of this show is many. We want to give the libertarian community opportunity to meet their down-ballot candidates. We want to challenge those candidates to incorporate what we call lunch-pail, ordinary American issues into their daily conversation. While I am certainly an admirer of Austrian economics, I think it's pretty clear that the rest of America, the voting public right now, are worried about things like COVID, inflation, underemployment, our out-of-control defense spending, the war on drugs, any one of a number of issues, particular to a given community, a given populace, a continuing electorate, really in a moment of time. We want to create a bond, if you will. We want to create a bond between our down-ballot candidates, of which there are now hundreds, maybe even countless, across the nation, with the Libertarian Party as a whole. We want to create the recognition that a candidate, in tonight's case, running in what I believe they call the Southern Kingdom or the Lower Empire or the whatever cute nickname they've come up for, the Southern Tier of New York, that their mission, their spread of the philosophy is just as important to the people of New York as it is to people in Maine, California, Florida, around the country. That each one of our candidates is a living testament to our mission, our philosophy, and bears an awesome responsibility when you think about it. For many people, as we always say, they are not only the first libertarian candidate they might meet, they might be the first libertarian they've met. So as libertarians around the nation spread out to their community and spread our message and become not government, not rulers, not governors, but stewards of their shared community assets, we support them in every way imaginable. So tonight, someone who is clearly a provocative candidate, yet presents both a strong message of what we like to say here is both love and, well, justice, who is a living embodiment of the libertarian principle. He's been on our show a couple of times, and we love to have him on because, particularly as we we move into this next election cycle, he's had the opportunity to run now. He's built up significant name recognition. He continues to be a full-time candidate, if you will. He's taking every opportunity he can to spread the message, as well as the message of his candidacy. And so it's important that when we recognize individuals like this, who are working so hard on behalf of our party, that it really serves well as nothing less than a role model to all the rest of us. Not just the whole inspiration thing, but just as a guy who every day grinds it out, who works the system, takes clear stands on issues, and reminds us that all of us, that everyone needs to just not just to show up anymore, but to take it personally. Of course, I'm talking about Tom Queter. He is running for, as yet, an undefined district for the New York State Legislature. He joins us now from the hinterlands. What do they call Binghamton? It's like the Southern Tier or the I don't know. I'll go back to Frodo.
You really love the controversy. So if you look up, if you Google for a map of Southern Tier, you'll find many different maps of the Southern Tier. Depends on who you're talking to. It's much like the upstate and downstate divide here in New York. If you're in New York City, everywhere else is upstate. Whereas if you're in Malone, New York, which is way up by Canada, everything below I-90 is downstate. To them, I'm a downstater.
Okay. I just think of Binghamton and its true role as truly the Paris of New York. I think it needs to be recognized as such. So, as I mentioned in my long-winded run-up, but clinically accurate at the same time, you're actually, we all know you. We all know what you stand for. We know, and sometimes I think we need to be reminded of the obstacles you've overcome to be one of that libertarians, if you will, if that's a way of saying it. But one of the challenges you're facing right now is something that's sadly common across the nation. Redistricting is happening in states across the nation as a direct response of the census. So, what's the process been like in New York? And do you have a home yet?
Well, my home is always in Mount Upton, which is a hamlet of Guilford in the county of Shenango. That's my home. Whatever district that ends up laying in, that's the district I'll be running for. Last cycle, it was District 52, which you had the map up there. And you can see it's a little gerrymandered already. With the redistricting going on, we have an independent redistricting board, which is already not so independent. It's made up of Republicans and Democrats, and they're supposed to come together and agree and propose a map. One map of new districts for the entire state. Well, guess what happened? The Republicans and the Democrats, they couldn't agree. Lo and behold, big surprise. They formed this coalition organization so they can come to a consensus, and they fail to come to a consensus, which is another reason we need a third voice, if not fourth, fifth, or sixth voice in our representation. We need a libertarian in the legislature so that we can get these two people together, these two parties, knock their heads together and get them to cooperate. Do what's in the interest of the people instead of themselves and their parties.
Well, we were on kind of a winning streak there. They all agreed that Cuomo had to go, right? Isn't that like hi, ho, ho? Mario Cuomo's gravy-trained son has got to go, something like that. So we got that far. Are you telling me that the coalition of the damned ended up pretty much hitting a brick wall there?
Well, I mean, we got rid of Cuomo. We got his evil sister. It's not really that much different. In fact, it might even be worse. Depends on who you're talking to. The argument is made that she is worse than Cuomo.
Now wait. In a moment like this, I have to invoke one of the great philosophers of New York, if you will, and I'm going back in ancient history. Of course, I'm talking about Lucy Ricardo. Splain, Lucy, splain. How could anybody be worse than a Cuomo?
By doubling down on Cuomo's edicts, by doing the same thing, only worse. That's the only way you get worse than Cuomo, right?
Oof. Really? Is it that bad?
Yeah.
Now, you folks have a mask mandate, an indoor mask mandate now? Is that the state of the art?
So the interesting part of this, you see William is commenting, he's in an area where they get much stricter lockdowns and mandates. Technically, we get them here too, but I live in Shenango County. It's a rural county in the very center of New York State that nobody pays attention to and nobody cares about. And we have a lot more freedom here than other parts of the state. It's interesting because, yes, there are rules, and some of them do apply to Shenango equally, but they're not enforced as much. There's more of a polite rhetoric. Mm-hmm. It's kind of Mayberry here, if that makes any sense.
Listen, we're doing 1950s television. I'll go with it. All right.
All right. So, yes, it's here. Yes, it's been a problem. It's certainly hurt our businesses. I mean, just like everywhere else in New York, a lot of our small businesses are shut down. Mm-hmm. But the individual impositions aren't quite as strong. businesses are doing what they have to do to stay alive. So if they have a requirement, they're going to pass that on. But it really is worse in New York City. That's been very self-evident from day one.
Right. Now, this, of course, this whole crisis in redistricting, I mean, we're heading towards the beginning of the new year. We're talking about an election cycle that's going to be compressed to about a 10-month process at this rate.
Right.
Are they aware? Has there been any discussion statewide as to how impactful this is going to be? Or is this a stalling technique, another way just to maintain control?
So it's very interesting what's going on here. So let's start at the beginning of the process here. There's an independent redistricting board that's made up of Republicans, Democrats, as I said, and they're supposed to come to a consensus and deliver a map to the legislature to be voted on. There's a bunch of hearings between the proposition of the map and the actual vote. People get to opine. I do believe other organizations and individuals can submit their own maps for consideration. The interesting thing here is if one of the two proposed maps does not get approved by January 15th, then the legislature, which is supermajority Democrat now, can take that nice chalkboard eraser and their pretty little colored chalk and do whatever the hell they want.
Okay, so you're saying is that the legislature can just invent their own formula, which can be based on just surely what happens in backroom dealing.
There's already inklings that they want to do away with the independent, which is an independent redistricting board to begin with. So what we do have, pardon me, frog in my throat, ribbit. What we do have is two proposed maps with an overlap. The fortunate thing from my perspective, being a resident of Shenango County, is that both maps contain the entire county of Shenango, whereas previously it was split up between 4 different Senate districts, never got any attention.
Right.
That's one of the downfalls of this weird gerrymandering we see is when an area gets split up by too many districts, it never gets looked at. Nobody cares. There's not enough votes there to campaign there. There's not enough votes there to care about it. Isn't that interesting?
You're effectively redlining entire communities.
Yeah. Whereas I looked at it differently last cycle. I didn't care how many votes were in a town. If it was in my district, I went, which is our duty. If we're seeking to be a representative, then we have to represent the entire district. If we don't represent the entire district, what are we?
We're Republicans and Democrats. That's what we are.
Right. So it's going to be fun either way, but there is an overlap. Shenango County entirely and half of Otsego County are in both maps that are proposed, which means that anything that gets passed is likely to also contain those 2 areas. So for now, that's where I've been campaigning. That's where I've been holding events. We've had many so far, both in person and online. I think we're up to 9 total fundraisers.
Wow.
Yeah, we've already raised a little over a third of what we had for the entire 2020 cycle, and without trying too terribly hard. I still have recurring donors from last cycle. Not here. Get this, Pat. I am a libertarian in New York State who won over an anti-gun Democratic teacher on gun laws.
It's all about having that conversation. Yeah. No, it's all about it. Again, we need to remind ourselves that sadly we do not live in a libertarian nation where there are enough libertarian voters to give us a clear majority. As a result, we have to engage in conversation. We don't have to step back on our principles. We need to explain them better. We need to listen put our inside voice on them, listening ears on them, and talk to people and just assume, as we like to quote Larry Sharp so often on the show, that you need to plant a seed, that you don't need to win the argument. And you're campaigning, as has Ashley's, as has almost every one of the successful campaigns in the past 2 years, has embodied that listening tour, that conversation, those explanations. I can't imagine a place, at least fundamentally, more hostile to a libertarian message than the Soviet Workers' Paradise of New York. But you guys continue to grow.
Well, I continue to try. I continue to do the work. I continue to talk to people. I continue to look at what's going on around me. I continue to build my team. That's what's necessary. It's interesting at a public event, particularly post 2020, these last handful of events that have been in person, you can't avoid running into people who are really hurting. In November, when Spike was here for a fundraiser for my campaign, at the end of that event, a young woman come up to me, and she was a wreck. Her mother was with her. She had all 5 of her children taken by CPS.
Oh.
Because she didn't have high-speed internet.
Wait, what?
Went to remote schooling. Their family didn't have high-speed internet.
Oh, mother of God.
She still hasn't gotten them back, even though she very quickly got high-speed internet.
The state's gone mad.
It has. And it gets worse. I get a lot of anonymous letters. That's another interesting thing that this COVID situation has done. Through my disability advocacy, I'm aware of some people who were harmed by vaccines. And the interesting thing here is, they had disabilities. Their doctors, in any other instance of a vaccine, would have known immediately that these people should not be given a vaccine because of their condition. But this messaging that comes out of a combination of our government and the commercials, I don't know if you've seen the commercials, Pat, for the vaccines. I saw one, there's this young woman running around with a megaphone telling everybody how safe it is. Have you ever read the definition of the word safe, Pat?
Please tell me.
The word safe means that it causes no harm.
Mm-hmm.
Not an acceptable level of harm, not just a little bit of harm, not just a little bit of risk. It's no risk of harm. That's what safe means. And the unfortunate thing here is that is a lie. I'm actually a pro-vax person who is against vaccine mandates, and that's because it's a lie. Not only is it a lie that causes doctors to forget how to do doctoring and end up harming their already at-risk individuals as patients, but it's just not correct. You cannot lie to your constituents in that manner. I mean, does anybody ever tell you as a young person that getting behind the wheel of a vehicle for the first time is safe? Anybody ever tell you that, Pat?
No, they still don't tell me it's safe with me.
Right, because we all recognize that the minute you're behind the wheel, the minute you're doing 50 miles an hour down the road, you're at risk. So it's not that I'm against a vaccine, but I am against a few things about the way this has been done. Yes, Tim, they are harmful. Mandates are harmful in many ways, but from my perspective, the mandates themselves and the situation of immediate punishment that New York State came out with, one of the first things they did was throw up a website where you could turn in your neighbors and your loved ones for not wearing a mask were not social distancing, and they would get $1,000 fine. They threw that up right away. How Nazi is that? Turn in your loved ones. Turn in your neighbors. Turn them in now. Turn in your brother. Turn in your sister.
I'm hoping libertarians in New York did the right thing, which was to turn in their entire school board,
I
entire town council.
I turned in the entire state legislature and accused them of kissing each other and spreading the communism virus.
I mean, that's the only response you can. You have to use humor, and you have to subvert. This I'm going to throw a question out to you. Does this party need more peaceful civil disobedience?
I'm sorry, I was reading Darren's comment. Say that again.
Does the libertarian movement need more peaceful civil disobedience?
Peaceful civil disobedience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, as long as it's peaceful and civil, disobedience is almost our duty, right? I mean,
thank you.
What are we supposed to do with an unconstitutional law, Pat?
Ignore it.
Disobey it.
Right.
Which is disobedient. I jaywalk every chance I get. Actually, Spike and I jaywalked together. You have a picture of that, I believe.
Yeah, we're gonna in the next segment of the show, we're gonna bring up the pictures. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
That's a picture for the ages, my friend. Absolutely a picture for the ages. You guys are marvelous. Absolutely marvelous.
My power chair had broken down, and Spike was literally the power that day.
He always is the power, isn't he?
He pushed me for mile and a half up and down through Oneonta Main Street, canvassing before a fundraising event.
Nice. No, that's one of the things I love about you, Thomas Peter, is that when you take to the streets, you actually take to the streets.
Yeah.
There you go. Running through the gauntlet of a libertarian. Just some of my biggest heroes. That, of course, I believe, is at the Pennsylvania event.
That is Liz Terwilliger's Perspectives on Freedom event with the one and only Steve Sheets, Tasha Cohen, her spouse, and of course Liz Terwilliger.
And Mr. Terwilliger is a veteran, as this show, actually a repeat offender, and someone who is a force of nature in the state of Pennsylvania. Folks, if you're just joining us, Tom Peters. We're not quite sure what district he's running for. We believe it might be, we need to come up with a symbol of this. The district formerly known as District 52. How about that? Can we come up with a print symbol for your district? We're talking about we're gonna jump right into this now. We've been sort of doing the commissioning thing, if you will, for the last half hour, convincing about and just kind of getting up to speed. But we're going to talk about in this next half hour is what it's like to run for office aggressively in this type of uncertainty. Now, you mentioned that you've given us some pictures and some background. You're clearly involved in day-to-day campaigning, raising money, doing outreach, canvassing, everything that you need to do. What is the populace's, the voters, the regular folks' reaction been to this redistricting? Are they paying attention to it? Do they care about it? Or is it just another day trying to survive?
Nobody knows. Policy hawks, they watch, but most people don't know. Anybody in bed with a senator is watching. That was after the speaking engagement at the fundraiser. We were actually selling memes that Spike and I signed. And I don't know if you remember that meme. Have you seen it, Pat?
No.
That is a meme that a supporter of mine, who's a veteran, Afghanistan veteran, supporter of mine made. It's me flying through the sky, and it says, "I run better than the government." And we have a version that says, "I run better than Albany."
There you go.
But it's true. And I can qualify that too, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
I can manage at least one step at a time, which is at least one step better than government.
There you go. So now the current incumbent, if you will. That's what's their reaction been to all of this madness, and are they actively campaigning?
So the current incumbent has decided he's not going to run again.
Oh, so we have an open seat.
He has endorsed someone. The current incumbent's Republican, who votes like a Democrat. That's fun. He likes vaccine mandates, and he likes removing religious and health exemptions from vaccine mandates. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, he likes to name things. It's always there when they're building something with your money.
Right. we refer to that in Rhode Island as when the government is making an investment on your behalf. Not an investment you may have chosen, but they're doing it on your behalf. Thomas, they know what's good for you. You have to accept that. They know what's right for Tom Queer. Are you expecting a primary in the Republican Party and or Democratic Party?
There's only one Republican that's announced that he's considering a run, and he is the current mayor of Binghamton. He ran for mayor on lowering taxes, which is what he's running for again on for Senate. You know what he did as mayor when he won?
What's that?
He raised taxes.
No, really? Well, now talk to that for a moment. What type of taxing authority do individual cities and counties have in addition to the theft that's performed on a daily basis by the wise men and women, the Solons, if you will, of the Empire State?
So in New York City's absolutely have a greater taxing authority. If you look at New York City, you might even argue it's greater than the states. As far as in Binghamton is concerned, Pat, let's face it, this is New York. If they can tax the air you're breathing, they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
But it does add another level, and they are that is the level they can defend you the most against new taxes.
So what is the tax structure like in terms of sales tax and things like, sin taxes and issues like that? I mean, how much of the consumer dollar in a tough economy, in a part of the state that faces a lot of economic challenges, how much are they actually taking from you?
So for sales tax, it's at least 8%. I do believe it varies by county. I notice now they have managed to apply that to Netflix.
Nice.
Netflix, yes, Netflix has to charge us our local sales tax now. Just interesting.
Mm.
One of the taxes I can talk about because it hits me. Vehicle rental tax in January of 2020, it went from 8 to 20% in one fell swoop.
Wait, 8 to 20%?
Yep, it climbed 12% in one move. So these disability accessible vans that I've had to rent over the last year, you've all seen me renting a van to go to Florida or Pennsylvania or most recently Syracuse. 20% tax on that.
And how much are we talking about for an average week's rental when you're going on a road trip?
Well, it's $125 a day plus miles.
Oh my God.
Actually, I think that 125 just climbed to like 130 or 135.
Right, because of socialist workers' paradise induced inflation, that's got to be going up through the roof.
Yeah. We do have something big going on here in my own town here in Kilford.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working with a board member. So as everybody's probably aware, New York has finally legalized cannabis for recreational use.
Mm-hmm.
And they've given towns and counties the option of opting out of legal recreational cannabis sales or on-site consumption dispensaries. These are two separate things. And our town board, they scheduled the meeting for the beginning of September. And then they rescheduled it for the end of September. And then they voted it down with no community involvement. And the single board member who didn't vote it down came to me, wanted to organize. So we did. We were able to get a referendum for this law. And now on Monday, we all go vote whether or not we want jobs and revenue in Guilford, New York.
Right.
Because it's not going to stop cannabis. Even if you are against cannabis, it's not going to stop it. Legal in New York. And two towns right next to us have opted in. So we either send our revenue somewhere else, make people travel farther, and don't get the jobs, or we have just as good a shot as anybody else. And you know, after COVID 2020, we need every last scrap of revenue and commerce we can find.
Mm-hmm. No, it's ludicrous. You know, the reefer madness edicts of the past in the year 2021 should be dead and buried. Quite frankly, legalizing cannabis is an incredible increase in safety to the public. And of course, what I mean by that is a open market product subject to the, if you will, the competitive nature of said open market. A significant product feature in legal cannabis is, since it's open market, the ability to, you know, promote testing of the product as part of your sales. I don't even want the government doing it. I just believe that if we can have a Yelp and we can have any one of a number of sites that rate product, then clearly that's going to happen. Just like just like you can read a Wine Spectator and find out a Cabernet that's a 95. A legal product will allow us the market to work for and support manufacturers of said product who are safe, who are tasty, as we like to say, right? And at the same time, provide a clear documentation as to their safety techniques. That's the way that you make New York State safer. That's the way that you make the nation safer. That's how you end narco-terrorism. That's how you end people being poisoned, if you will, by black market traffickers in cannabis. I mean, it just the safest thing you can do for drugs is to make them thoroughly and completely legal.
When it comes to cannabis, there's a lot more to it. So I'm a disabilities advocate, and I peer counsel people with drug problems. With free and easy, cost-effective access to cannabis, I have seen people quit hard meth addictions. And I have seen people get rid of those fanny packs or small duffel bags of prescription opiates. I have seen people lose weight. I have seen people find relief from severe rheumatoid arthritis, all because of cannabis. Now, if you think about our healthcare system, what's the number one problem with it?
Expense.
The cost.
Right.
Cost and overuse. I think the widespread acceptance of cannabis use in general will reduce our reliance on a healthcare system that is so bloated, so expensive, that it simply cannot last for much longer. Beyond that, we'd see a lot more automatic reform happening with those who have addiction problems for other drugs. We could turn this into a cottage industry, kind of like fine wines, where the the local breweries going on. Everybody develops their own cultivar, or everybody has their own gimmick, whatever it is. Um, there is such a thing as cannabis tourism. We could take advantage of that, especially in upstate New York. We have the land to do it. We have the resources to do it. Let's do it. But the problem is, when New York legalized, they instated one hell of a tax system, and they're looking at tickets and fines for driving or whatever else it is that people are already doing while they're smoking their cannabis. Um, so they want to make it cost prohibitive. Cannabis will be perfectly legal for those who can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of us, it's going to be a giant gray market. You probably understand about the gray markets and how that's worked in other states.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm old enough to that my father was alive during the during the gray market surrounding alcohol during Prohibition, and we all see how well that worked. Now, is the last time we talked at length was during your last campaign in the run up to the last election. And, we talked about issues that mattered to New Yorkers. Right now in your district, you talked provocatively about cannabis reform. Where do the other issues stand?
Oh, wow. Pat, it's New York. Every issue is an issue. Mandates are highly unpopular. Those who like them have comfortable state jobs or something similar. Those who don't like them are the people who are out of a job or suffering. I believe that we need to take the fear out of our governance. I believe the mandates and the approach, like I stated earlier, where they were encouraging people to turn in their neighbors and their loved ones. I believe that the ultimate goal of governance should be to not use those tactics, to offer advice, to offer information, to encourage, not to punish, not to mandate. Because what happens when you try to force a large group of people, you guarantee that a significant portion of those people will push back. If you push down on a spring, there's tension, it's pushing back. If you push down too far and that spring is too strong, we are a strong people, something's going to give, and it's not going to be pretty. In general, right now, property taxes is a huge problem. They keep going up. Pat, there isn't a tax in New York State that I don't think is going up. I think they're all going up. I think that's a huge problem. Our cost of living is another huge problem. But we have so many regulations in place that it just costs too much to live here.
Right.
And we certainly don't have enough jobs. That's another reason why I see you scroll on my policy there. If you go up to the agricultural policy, there you go. You go ahead and click on Learn More. You'll see New York Fresh is a concept that we've come up with. Not just me, but me and a team. I'm a candidate. I'm the face. I'm the person who does the things. But I have a team of experts who help me with my policy. New York Fresh is a way of getting around the federal regulations, which are really just an added cost because our own state and local regulations are more than adequate for our needs with regards to agricultural products. Mm-hmm. But we should be able to raise, produce, manufacture, sell, and consume a product every step of the way laying within the borders of New York State without the federal government getting involved. Now, if we're going to sell it to Pennsylvania, maybe the USDA should apply. But if we're a lot of people don't understand this, but there are USDA approved butchers, and then there are local butchers. You can take your cow or your steer to either of those butchers and have it butchered and take it home and eat it. And in both cases, you will not get sick. No one will get sick from that meat. But the USDA butcher will cost you more.
Mm-hmm.
And the non-USDA accredited butcher will mean that you cannot sell that meat as retail. So why shouldn't we just allow our small farmers to have their meat butchered at a readily available butcher who's closer, so there's less stress on the animal? It's also more humane for the animal, and sell it retail. Why not? We have health standards already in place.
Well, what's particularly attractive to me is I see the statement there in terms of raw milk. Dairy farmers around the country are just under fire. Not just competition from non-dairy products, but again, anyone who actually didn't sleep through or drink through freshman economics in college understands what price controls do. They artificially skew the market. They create product shortages. There's all sorts of evils associated with price controls. So simply allowing the market to right itself will then allow the free market to determine how many dairy farmers there should be, and allowing raw unpasteurized milk to be sold will allow niche farmers to create and carve out a distinctive audience for their products, and then will encourage the type of, if you will, micro farm. We used to call it family farms, micro farming, or non-big corporate farming. It's the ability to sell custom crafted product, regardless of whether it's food product, whether it's a consumer item, is what allows small business people to succeed in a market where, quite frankly, large corporations leverage their ability to get large amounts of capital. They're able to grow enormous economies of scale simply because of the internet and the use of this large market capital, squeezing out competition and innovation. I say there should be room for everybody by allowing a truly free market. And something like this looks outstanding, even at first blush, and astonishing in its political bravery, because this, in its own way, flies directly in the face of every type of government control that is the bane of our existence.
Well, Pat, I'm going to disagree with that. It doesn't fly in the face. It just says we're doing it twice. Why are we doing it twice? Costs money both times. Get rid of the regulation that overlaps.
I think he misunderstood me. I think he misunderstood me.
Own health standards deal with it.
Yeah, no, to me, it's the government regulations from the federal government that are one size fits all.
Yep.
Do not allow for the type of market creativity we need to innovate and disrupt markets.
Yeah, and New York is one of the states that has the power to we're in New York, right? Raise that middle finger to the Fed and say, look, we got to do this our way so we can survive. And if you try to stop us, then you're breaking your own rules. There's more to this New York fresh, too. We do have this upstate and downstate divide going on in New York. There's actually movements to divide the state. And I actually disagree with that. I want to do the opposite. I want to knit it back together. I want to repair it. So there's a few things that people don't understand widely, particularly if we're upstate and we're talking about downstate. Upstaters don't understand that downstaters are living in an area that has so much more control over their lives, so much more government. They don't even get to elect half the positions that we elect up here. They're all appointed in New York City. No wonder they don't understand freedom. And when we're talking about the New York Fresh program, though, there's a very interesting concept here. We have 7 million acres of farmland in upstate New York, and it's all either unused or underutilized. We're not reaping the benefits of our own resources. Now, in New York City, pre-COVID anyhow, hopefully this picks back up because it's a good thing, we had a farm-to-table movement with restaurants. They wanted better, higher quality, more local products that they could trust, and that they could point to where they came from, and that's what their customers wanted. Now, here's the thing. If we utilize our own existing infrastructure, I know that sounds ridiculous, Pat, to use what we already have. we could actually, if we implemented New York Fresh, we could raise the price the farmers get in upstate and reduce the price the patrons pay at the restaurant in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Because we would be able to cut so much cost out of the process. Libertarians literally doing more with less. And that's an advantage that should be looked at. And there are many other aspects in which we can heal that divide and utilize our common need of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's interesting that nobody has thought of these things. Why? Why does nobody innovate anymore, Pat?
Well, I think I'll just reflect back on briefly on a personal story. My wife's family grew up in France. She's truly a first generation American. Her mom lived in France in the 20s, and then they moved to New York, in Long Island, in New York City, and so we've gone over there a number of times, particularly before our kids were born, and we met an entrepreneur within her family, and who had come with the idea, that this was back in the 90s, of having a regionalized dry cleaning service. And this is in Western France. And where little trucks would drive around and pick up and deliver the dry cleaning. And there was no culture of individual entrepreneurialism in France at that point in time, even once you got out of, say, Paris. It really exists for generations in Western Europe. Large interests controlled a great deal of commerce. And I fear that mentality is taking place and setting in fast and hard in the United States, because it is, while on one hand, the internet and a variety of digital technologies allow more opportunity for products to come to scale in ways we've never seen before, but at the same hand, the government, by constantly, death by a thousand paper cuts, they used to say, having all these different market controls, particularly over organic products, over farm style products. There's a family I know, they run something called Roxbury Mountain Maple Syrup up in upstate New York. It's amazing stuff, the Holscher family. And they, you can look it up, roxburymountainmaple.com. We are not compensated for our services here on LPTV, but people don't associate traditionally maple syrup with upstate New York, right? These guys have thousands and thousands of trees under cultivation. I mean, talk about a win-win for everybody. That part of upstate New York is a sort of a natural air conditioner and air freshener for the entire Northeast. And at the same time, you've got people making incredible product, and they sell before the Rona. They used to sell it at a lot of markets, actually in Manhattan, in New York City, and now we're having to find alternatives. But it's those kind of businesses in upstate New York that are under immense pressure by all these costs, by inflation, by big government, by regulation, immense pressure to succeed. And somehow, despite the best efforts of government, they manage to do so and consistently turn out amazing product. But you just wonder how many generations can put up with just the sheer stress of all the non-business related hanger-ons and weights that are placed upon them that have nothing to do with simply making sure that their core product, in this case maple syrup, in other cases any one of them are dairy products in upstate New York, just simply making sure that there's the best. That should be all they need to worry about. That they can deliver a high-end, safe product that will be hopefully bought by the masses. That's all they should have to worry about. None of this other nonsense.
That's very interesting, Pat, because a good farmer does worry about his product. I grew up with my father selling produce to pay land taxes. And it was, he only put the best produce out there. We ate the ugly produce, tomato that's funny shaped or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is a fact when you pile on regulation after regulation, or tax after tax, or requirement after requirement, and someone who is producing your food, you're taking time, energy, and attentiveness away from what they're doing. You just are. You're removing their ability to produce a good product by weighing them down with unnecessary and arbitrary rules and regulations.
It's you know, I've decided that one of my New Year's resolutions is going to ban the use of the word unfortunate from my personal English language, because when I'm on with Verizon, I hear the word unfortunate a lot. When I'm talking to the government, I hear the word unfortunate a lot. Now, unfortunate is a word that's been thoroughly neutered, and it used to have some power behind it. Now, I use words like abomination and balderdash, because I got to keep it clean, but at the same time, I have to find new ways to express the sheer outrage that I and many people like us feel at these thorough invasions of people's lives by a body upon which they have little or no control, for reasons yet to be determined, other than the sheer avarice and greed of the ruling classes. And so I've decided I won't use the word unfortunate after 12/31. And we're going to put a little dollar jar here. I have to put $1 every time I use the word unfortunate. But to your point, and the bigger point is, let's set these people free. We talk as libertarians setting people free in our lifetime. Let's set farmers free. We should make that there's so many libertarians around the nation that are nearby or associated with or affiliated with family farms and related businesses, that it should be a priority of ours to set them free from all this madness.
Pat, if we can set states like New York, California, Texas, and Florida free, or just get them freer, that's going to have a huge beneficial impact on the entire country. Bad policy and good policy starts in states like these states and spreads across the nation. That's partly because of electoral power, and that's partly because, well, of a lot of things. But it is important that we treat these states as battleground states. It's important that we realize that if California and New York all take away our rights, then the rest of the country is next.
Right. We cannot give up any ground whatsoever. And a critical component, because I want to make sure I get time for this part of the conversation, and a critical element to that in New York, as it is in most states across the country, in the first step to being able to elect people to positions where they can bring to the table our libertarian philosophy, our perspective, our outlook, our world, is, of course, ballot access. Now, you guys are facing some hellacious challenges there in New York. What are you going to need to do to get on the ballot once they finally decide what you're going to be on the ballot for? Give us a sort of perspective as someone for running for the General Assembly.
So I'm running for the state Senate,
Right.
and for that race, it's 3,000 signatures, which means you want to get about 4,500 because they're going to try to invalidate as many as they can. However, we don't have the 2022 political calendar yet from Albany. They haven't told us for sure. So there is a chance that number could go up again, even though it just recently went up. The other thing is the petitioning period, if we're to go by the last year, in 2 years even, for non-ballot access parties is between the middle of April and the end of May. So, and it's only a 6-week window for a state Senate seat.
Wow.
So we're going to have to get 4,500 signatures minimum, in my mind.
And that's also, in, as you say, a rural district. How many folks, roughly, just to give me a ballpark, live within what currently constitutes District 52?
Okay, so what currently constitutes District 52 will be about 111,000 voters. 40 of which live in my county. Now, it's estimated that any new districts would contain a similar number of voters.
Right. So
we have a good strategy going into petitioning. We're going to create a calendar of events that are already going on and send our people there. However, I need money, Pat. Can you believe it or not? In politics, you need money.
Yep. Well,
we are going to be looking at paying petitioners. We are going to be looking at gas money for volunteer petitioners. We're going to be looking at a lot of expenses, and I need to have 10 grand in the bank in my own mind, just for that purpose.
Right. Now, do your, and I know this is kind of an open question. You may not be certain of this yet. Do your signatures count towards state party accreditation?
No, they do not. But Larry's number of votes in the election does.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get Larry on the line, of course my district overlaps his because his is statewide, but then we'll have a double petitioning going on in mine, right? We can get both at once, which is good. But I'm a bit of a headstrong, lead the way kind of loner. I love party support. I love working with people. I'm going to work with Larry as much as I can, but I'm not going to count on anybody but myself and my team.
Right.
I don't think it's ethical to go into something like a political race as a third-party candidate thinking that you're going to have all the help in the world because you're not. You've got to do the work. You've got to do it the way I did it last cycle. You've got to go out day after day after day, 4, 5, 7 days a week. You've got to get up and be out the door by 7 a.m., not coming back till 8 or 9 p.m. You've got to go do the thing. You've got to shake the hands. You've got to meet the people. You've got to go to event after event. You've got to be seen in every town. You've got to be known. And that takes work.
And money. And out here, we have a saying at my private venture, we attend the opening of an envelope. And I got a sense that you're going to be attending the opening of a lot of envelopes in your part of New York. And the only way we change these burdensome laws, these frankly unconstitutional, the founders never intended a political system where established interests would be gatekeepers and intentionally make it difficult for competition.
Yeah.
We did, and one of my frustrations as being part of this political organization, and full disclosure, I am an alternate for Region 8 on the Libertarian National Committee. One of my frustrations is we don't make that point enough from a marketing perspective. I don't think most Americans understand the challenges, the hoops, what we have to do in order to just simply get in the game, never mind be competitive. And the amount of time, I just remember how much time the petitioning to get Joe on the ballot in Rhode Island took away from my ability to simply advocate on behalf of Joe in 2020. Extremely frustrating that, I essentially lost 2 months of time because I was standing out at the damn DMV and out in shopping mall parking lots begging people to sign in the middle of a damn pandemic by their definition. So we need to we need to educate people. Again, getting back to Larry's plant a seed, we need to educate people how difficult our quote unquote leaders are making it for simply to have something as American as competition. That should be on the menu communication wise, because we certainly have people like you we have people around the nation who are fiercely out there petitioning. We need to get into a world where we retire them from petitioning and put them into something that's, going to be, I'll never say not important because it's critical what they do, but we need to put them in a place where they're talking about policy and they shouldn't have to worry about us getting on the ballot. Our candidates, as do many grassroots political organizations, deserve to be on the ballot simply because that's a functioning part of our democracy.
Yeah, so, you'll never find a Democrat or a Republican candidate, especially not for a larger race, that knows what it's like to step into every other position on the campaign team. Libertarians, though, you'll find us doing everything at one point or another. I gained a lot of skills. I actually started out working on a 2020 presidential campaign and chairing my county affiliate. Now, Now I'm running for Senate for the second time, and I'm a second-term county chair, and I'm on the state committee and some subcommittees. It's looking like I'll be a delegate to Reno.
Mhm.
It's looking like I'm going to get to go, and it's amazing. People don't understand what it is for me. Right? They think, oh, he's a cute little cripple and he's doing his cute little cripple thing. It's like, no. Libertarian Party has supported my life in ways that no one else in this world has or would. Not even the government. I can tell you that voluntarism through libertarians has been more effective and cheaper than welfare. My wheelchair is crowdfunded. We just crowdfunded a van. Did you see that, Pat? We just crowdfunded a new accessible van.
That's what's the technical term for that? Libertarian AF.
Right. We look for used vehicles. We're not about brand spanking new. We're not that kind of family. I'm not that kind of person. But I tell you what, to watch people crowdfund $12,000 in 23 hours just for me, that was an amazing feeling. I have an endless amount of gratitude for every single donor out there. That right there. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? 533 people came through for that. It's actually gone up since then. It continues to go up. So they've given me a wheelchair and now an accessible van. They've funded my trips for politics. They funded my campaign, and now I'm going to do the Bernie Sanders thing. I'm once again asking for your support. Please go to tomfor52.com. Donate what you can, where you can. We need every dollar. We need to get moving. We need to be on the road. We need to buy gas. We need to hold events. We need to send flyers. We need to do some commercials. We need to make sure we're reaching all of the voters. Because I tell you what, Pat, those 13,000 votes I got, guarantee you those were 13,000 people that I got to talk to face to face.
No, dude, you're an animal. You're an effing warrior, and that's and like I said, you take it personally. You take it to the streets. That's where all of us need to be right now. Yeah, we need to. I understand people are going to be on a little downtime, a little recovery the next couple of weeks during the holidays. January 2nd, we need to be out there, and there is no limit to the amount of work that can be done.
You get downtime?
Yeah, well, that's what they say. I'm working. There's some guy named Jonathan Howe running for Congress in District 14. Who we're going to be talking. We're going to have on very soon, by the way. I know you know Jonathan. He's like you. He's a great guy. He's running against somebody named Alexandria Octavio, something AEO, whatever, something like that. and we are going to take that personally on this show as well, because I had an opportunity to talk about the New York electoral scene at the LNC meeting last week, and I pointed out that the quality of candidates coming out of New York State needed our support and needed our investment. It is one of the most important media markets on the planet. It's an astonishing place, filled with energy and entrepreneurial spirit and can-doism. And we've got candidates who exemplify that and simply want to create the opportunity for more of that. And the quality of candidates at the New York State organization continues to generate. And I'm going to talk in a second about a very special show next Friday that we're going to have about that's going to be based on a series of campaigns in Indiana. So it exists all over the country. That's why this show exists, is to try and reach out to as many people as possible and try and get them to support cross candidates. Again, folks, and we're gonna bring up in a second how you can donate. It's pretty simple. Tom for 52. You invest in this candidacy. The impact is exponential.
Pat, I got to throw out some things here while you're talking about this. My campaign last cycle did far more than take 12.4% or 13,000 votes.
Mm-hmm.
We encouraged other candidates to run.
Right.
We grew libertarian registration in district by 60%.
Outstanding.
We grew more eyes in the party. We grew more candidates, but you know what? I took some advice from a few people that I networked with early on who've been around this party for a while. We grew young people. We grew young libertarians into better professionals that are going to stay in the party.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to be doing. And so everywhere I go, I'm talking to young people. Every time I campaign or do anything for the Libertarian Party, I'm talking to young people. I'm trying to get them involved. I still take phone calls to this day, Pat. If there's someone who is interested in libertarianism, interested in my campaign, wants to know how to get involved, I don't care what part of New York State they are from, they can call me, and they do. Probably once a week or so, I am talking to somebody who's new to libertarianism just because they called me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. Now, there's one other thing that I am going to do with this campaign for 2022. And I want to try to herald and exemplify the forms of libertarianism that exist within our culture that everybody does every day without knowing they're libertarian. And that's voluntarism.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us will stop and help someone. Most of us will help our neighbor or our brother or someone we went to school with. What we fail to realize is we are the most generous people, statistically, of any country on earth. And we are coming up on some hard times.
Right.
Particularly in New York State. We're going to see services cut. We're going to see problems with health care. Anybody with a disability is going to be SOL. We need to encourage volunteerism. We need to teach people that they can do the things, that they can help their community. And that's what I'm looking to do this time. We're developing a bit of a starter packet to download. Give you a bunch of ideas, and I want to go on from there. I want to teach people directly how they can help their own communities and each other. And you can expect me to be talking about that a lot this year.
Oh, excellent. I know that I'll have the opportunity a couple times coming up to see you in person. I know there's a couple of events going on around the state, and again, I embrace the continued engagement that I'm able to have with candidates around the country, in particular the candidates, and there are so many of them, who just elevate our national game simply because of your presence, simply because of your ethics, simply because of your engagement, simply because of your messaging, simply because of your fundraising. It's all very simple, except I know how hard it is. And so all of us, there's a lot of love in this huge family. We're fractious, we're contentious. Sometimes we beat the crap out of each other, but there's a lot of love here. And I know that you've got nationwide support, not just for what someone would consider obvious reasons, but because of how much you've already given back to the party. And that, I think, is the measure of the man here, because of your willingness to engage and sacrifice for so many others. And so there are libertarians who live by example, and then there's libertarians who preach. I am in the, if you will, having a conversation, folks, with someone who lives the principles. And I'll do everything I can to help out from our little pulpit far away here in Rhode Island. And I know that everyone else will. And I think the message that you bring to people is not just, obviously, you'd love as much support as possible, but folks need to also embrace other down ballot candidates around the country. So, I have to give you your opportunity for what we lovingly call shameless self-promotion in just a second. But before you sign off, I want to talk about next week's show. It's going to be an interesting kind of concept. In the great state of Indiana, which has a powerful libertarian movement there, a great party run currently by Evan McMahon, who's just done a phenomenal job. he inherited a lot of wonderful things from other folks who walked the path before. There's a great tradition of candidates there, most recently in the gubernatorial race, where we have, like we have in our company right now, players, people who embody what it takes to be a libertarian candidate and are growing successes. Where years ago we were thrilled to get a couple points, now we're breaking into the mainstream. We're impacting elections. Our message is being heard. So what we've got going on is James Seniak is running against Will Henry. They're both running for the nomination from the great state of Indiana to run as the Libertarian for the United States Senate. And I had a conversation with Evan last week, and there's a sudden outbreak in Indiana of love and mutual respect going on. And we want to fan the flames of that outbreak. You've got two candidates who have agreed and are acting as principled libertarians, engaging with each other at a number of forums, talking about issues without hate, without sarcasm, without derision, without division, without any of that, and have sworn to run the high road into their convention. And this is, there's a gentleman's handshake that exists between Mr. McMahon and Mr. Seniak and Mr. Henry, that whoever is not successful will in fact act as a volunteer in the other's candidacy.
Yep.
Holy shnikes, as a wise philosopher once said. That's awesome.
I met Will recently.
Yep.
Yep. He actually came to the fundraiser with Spike Cohen last month.
Excellent. Well, they're going to have a conversation on the air. And it's going to be a conversation. It's going to be issues based, and they're just going to explain their individuals' perspectives. So it's not really going to be a debate. Of course, we'll try to gin up some viewership by claiming it's going to be a debate, but it's really going to be a conversation between the two of each of them's perspective on their potential role as a United States Senator representing Indiana. And I'm looking forward to that. So, folks, that's going to be next Friday night. Same bat time, same bat station, 9:00 here on LPTV, and of course broadcast throughout the libertarian world, mainly because of my conspicuous spamming and me sharing of this signal. And we look forward to really breaking some new ground with that approach, because it's an embarrassment of riches when we have great libertarians, contesting an endorsement or a nomination for a seat as important as the United States Senate or a seat for your local school council. The notion that we can elevate both of them and elevate the conversation is thrilling to me, and I simply can't wait. We also want to point out that we're approaching convention season, so we'll have a list of the convention. But if folks from individual libertarian parties, big or small, whether it be county affiliate, town affiliate, city affiliate, on up to state affiliate, want to come on and engage in shameless self-promotion, or want to send us links or pictures or advertisements to promote their convention and attendance at their convention, they just need to send it to me, pat.ford@lp.org. At least for the time being, I have a big boy email address. I'm part of that club. I got the secret Dakota ring tile. I got the secret handshake. So I'm going to ask actually super producer John to throw that up there. If you've got comments or issues or want to be on the show, it's pat.ford@lp.org. It almost kind of rhymes. I'll challenge anyone to do a rap on that. So please send me clips, 30-second commercials. If you think it'll be fun, you think we'll enjoy it, you think it's important, just send it to me, and we'll figure out a way to share it with the Libertarian Nation. So, Tom, I'm going to give the floor back to you. If you could engage in something, I want you to overcome the shyness factor, your hesitancy to make a speech, if you will, and engage in shameless self-promotion.
So, Pat, I say this everywhere I go, especially in libertarian circles. New York is a battleground state. New York is where bad policy starts and spreads across the country. New York, as you pointed out, has several good candidates, and we're growing more. New York, as an affiliate, is growing. I need your help. I need your help to make sure I get on that ballot, to make sure I defy their ballot access laws, to make sure that I defy the two-party control, to make sure that the libertarian message is held and carried alongside Larry's message, to make sure that Larry's not up there alone, to make sure that someone is looking at a district that's in upstate New York, to make sure that everyone gets represented and heard. I need your help to be on that ballot. I've got some things up my sleeve. If you get me on the libertarian line, I've got some things up my sleeve. But go to tomfor52.com. Donate what you can. Get me on that line. I need your help.
Tom, thanks again, and I know you'll be back on the show. Again, thanks for jumping in tonight and joining us. Thanks for sharing the message. As we always love to say, Tom, thank you for being you. How about that?
And thank you for having me, Pat.
Of course. Folks, you've been listening to Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Billieu serving as chair. As always, a big thanks to John Gapso. He's on the big board, sharing infotainment and graphics and newspaper articles, all sorts of scurrilous stuff in order to amplify the message, give it a little bit of background, and make this fun and interesting. Folks, it's the holidays. If for some reason I don't speak to you or you don't have the opportunity to listen to next week, I wish all of you the merriest of Christmases, the happiest of Hanukkahs, the most wonderful Kwanzaa. This is a time of the year of joy and peace and celebration of family and friends. Hopefully the Libertarian Party, its members, its advocates, our activists, our candidates are part of that party of families and friends. Every now and then I quote one of my favorite quotes. It's by a former well-known science fiction actor on television. I think he played somebody called Spock. And in his last tweet, because here's a gentleman, an artist and an actor of renown who embraced Twitter as a way to communicate with his fans and with the greater public. And in his last tweet, he said something incredible, and I think it really applies to this time of year. A life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved, except in memory. Live long and prosper. We'll see you next week. Good night.